Well, that's another thing. What do you think about that? I mean, you just said it yourself. People change. Do you think that you can really make a commitment for your whole life to someone?
I don't particularly believe in marriage as an institution, really. I mean, as a kind of contract in terms of, kids and that kind of thing. I think it's good, but I don't think marriage has the same kind of weight that it used to when it was kind of in front of God or whatever. When people were more religious, and maybe it was a kind of, it did have a certain element of sort of, there was someone watching you if you were like, I don't know, if you had infidelities or whatever. But I don't know if you can make that commitment. I think that for myself, I'd rather just be in a relationship and just see what happens. I don't think you can put that kind of pressure on yourself. And I think that a lot of the time it's luck. Sometimes people do change and you can't recognise the person that you first met in them, I suppose, after 10 or 15 years. Sometimes when people have kids, they change. Sometimes when they get married, it all starts to go downhill. I don't really know, but I mean, I think if you're lucky, then the person you're with, that you'll kind of change together maybe, and that you won't, you'll be happy with that person. And after a long time, I think you just become like, almost like one person, even if you don't really realise it. I mean, I'm very independent from my girlfriend and she's doing her own thing. But I think you do grow together so that you can't really imagine life without them. But I don't know. We could actually talk for hours about that.
I don't mind, but I think you have a show tonight. No, it's interesting and it's cool to see you as a person. Like when I hear you talking, I'm first of all wondering, like, how old are you?
I'm 32.
Oh yeah, okay, that explains a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people think I'm a lot younger.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Well, yeah, that's good. I mean, yeah, another thing, like when you're in your 30s, then sometimes society expects you to behave in a different way. And that's also something that I find weird, because why do we have to change? Why do we suddenly have to think about, okay, I want to have a family, I want to have kids, I want to live in a house, all of those things. Like, I mean, you have a different lifestyle since you're a musician, but what's your view on those things?
I don't know. I think sometimes those kind of pressures, they come from kind of families, and I don't mean they just come from, I don't really know.
Well,
a lot of my friends have had kids recently, and I think what happens is one person has a kid and everyone kind of goes, ooh, or one person gets married and then everyone else is like, it seems to come in like, it's like a domino kind of thing, but I'm not sure if I think maybe we are allowed slightly more to be younger, older, if you see what I mean. I think that, 20s are now 30s, almost feel like 20s now, and 20s you're still a teenager, trying to work out what you're going to do with yourself. Yeah, I mean, I've written a song on the albums about kind of getting older and taking on those responsibilities, and I think that called Hold On. And I think, but the thing that interests me in music is that there is this kind of myth of like the eternal sort of teenager. Do you know what I mean? There's still bands who are like 60 years old now, trundling around singing the same songs they wrote when they were 19, which I think is quite bizarre. Do you know what I mean? I think there is a sort of romantic view of teenagehood, and I think that you can write songs about the bits later on. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I don't think that everything should be like about Saturday night partying. I think that there's a lot more, to be written about, as is written about in books and in films and other media, whereas music does seem to kind of focus on that kind of the sort of first flush of kind of rock and roll teenagehood.
Yeah, that's true. Well, like for Just Jack, would you say that when people listen to your music, they really see Just Jack? Is that really you that's in there, or do you portray someone else in there?
I don't portray anyone else. I think that I don't do that on stage either. I think that people have a kind of persona or a front. If you're not very confident with yourself, then obviously you have to have something else, some kind of barrier. But I've learnt to be reasonably happy with who I am. Do you know what I mean? So I think the second album, the first album was much more personal, was very, very personal stuff, and literally the people around me or people I was in relationships with or whatever would know exactly what I was talking about. But with the next album, the second album, it's a lot more about other people. It's more kind of external, and so I think that I don't really want myself to be the focus. I don't necessarily want people to put on an album and be like thinking about me or trying to get inside my head. I think it's hopefully people will just kind of relate to what I'm saying, within themselves or whatever, and maybe forget about me. That would be nice.
No, well, when you listen to music, what does it do to you?
What does it do to me? It affects me emotionally, obviously. Depending on, some music makes me angry because it's terrible. Some music I absolutely love. Obviously, some music makes you want to cry. I mean, it's just the same as everyone else, really. Hopefully, that you get some kind of emotional kind of effect on people. But I don't think too much about the person kind of doing it, unless it's someone who's really kind of laying their kind of laying themselves on the line. Like if you listen to like an Amy Winehouse record, you can't help but picture her or think about her life or her as a person. But there's other music that just kind of takes you out. I used to listen to a lot of instrumental music, which I never even knew who made it. It was always kind of like instrumental kind of dance music from America. I didn't know who'd made it, and I've never been that interested in music personalities as a rule. I read a couple of biographies, and it's all just kind of like the same stuff. Loads of drugs, sex, on the road, tours, this, that. It's like, right, we've read one of them. I know what happens in that one and that one and that one. So I'm not really interested in music personality people. I'm much more interested in putting on a record or a CD or an MP3, and just listening to it and just letting it kind of wash over me.
Yeah, I can understand that too. But like with our viewers, we tend to see a lot of them, they really focus on the people behind the band, and they want to know who they are, and they want to know if those people really believe in what they wrote and maybe even live what they wrote. And sometimes they kind of, a lot of times they idolize them. Do you understand why they do that?
I do to an extent, but I do find it difficult. It's one area of being in the music sort of industry that is kind of quite strange for me, because I never had like posters on my wall of people. I never really kind of got obsessed with anyone or kind of wanted to know what they had for breakfast or what kind of socks they wore or whatever. I think so I do find it hard to understand that. But then I think that also people kind of, it depends on the music. I think that if it's music to kind of rebel against your parents, to kind of teenage music, I can understand why they kind of really, they feel like they have a kind of affinity with the people who make the music. I think we do have to watch out though, because obviously a lot of people out there are total fakers, and what you expect, I mean, the industry itself, I think everyone has an image of like a backstage at festivals or being on tour. And like I was just saying to a friend of mine the other day, and he like, he likes to party, and even he was saying on tour, nothing really very much happens. It's like the whole sort of rock and roll kind of dream is perpetuated by everyone. I reckon there's a lot more people going home, having a bowl of muesli and a glass of orange juice and going to bed. Do you know what I mean? I think it's, people love the idea that everything's kind of wound up so much, and that everyone's kind of, completely drugged up all the time, and, bathing in Jack Daniels and, whatever else. I just don't think, I think some people do, but I think a lot of the time you have to watch out for the persona that people kind of put on maybe sometimes.
Yeah. What do you think of those fake people? Do you think that there is... I mean, I'm having difficulties with that. Like, personally, when I know that a band are just complete assholes, I won't listen to them anymore, because it takes away a part of their music. It takes away the realness. Right. And, like, what do you think about that?
I've never had that. No. Because I can separate the two things very easily. I mean, some people, I remember when I was at university, and I had quite a lot of arguments with people about Michael Jackson, because there was all stuff coming out about Michael Jackson, and I think he got booed somewhere, and there was, I think Jarvis Cocker jumped on stage at this thing, and everyone was going, oh, it was so great that Jarvis Cocker had jumped on stage and got his arse out or something. I think he mooned at Michael Jackson or something. And I had arguments with people because I was trying to explain, that like, that Michael Jackson is like Off the Wall and Thriller and like great albums, like and like musical genius, you know what I mean? And like totally changing the face of music. And it got me quite angry that suddenly people, because they'd heard, this about him or that about him, and all these kind of rumours and stuff, people can maybe stop listening to his music. But for myself, I don't really care what people do with their lives. If they're still making good music, which obviously now he isn't really making good music anymore, but for myself, I don't really mind. I don't care, what Pete Doherty does. Not that I particularly like his music, or Amy Winehouse does. I do like her music, but I don't care, what she's doing. I don't really care if Lily Allen's rude. I don't care about any of it very much. I don't care if a rapper's shot someone or got shot or done any of that kind of stuff. For myself, if the music's good, then it's good, and if it's not, then it's not.
Oh, I can respect that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna leave you now because I think you have to go. But thank you so much for doing this, and thank you, and good luck tonight.
Thanks very much.
Okay.